Well, it's St. Patrick's Day, and it's pretty cold outside. Actually, it's kind of blustery, you might say. There's a little bit of a wind, and in addition to that, there's some mist in the air. So since it's St. Patrick's Day, I think it's a good time perhaps to head to the high tunnel and see how we're coming with our greens. That's what we're going to talk about today on Gardening with Mark. Top of the morning to you, Aaron Gobra. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Today I'm in the high tunnel, the perfect place to have a conversation with you about the things that we can be doing this time of year. It's cold outside, it's drizzling rain, the wind is a little blustery. The high tunnel provides us some solar heat and gives us some protection from the elements. It's also a great place for me to come in here and show you some things I can't show you yet out in the main garden, but things I can talk with you about here in the high tunnel today that have to do with our greens, growing greens. You know, we've talked about a couple things already this year, the importance of solarizing your beds and the things that you can plant that are cold hardy plants, things that will germinate in colder temperatures. So today we're going to show you a few of those things here in the high tunnel. Let's get started by showing you what's coming up already in the ground only about 8 days after we planted the seeds, and I'll show you the soil temperature and why we solarize our beds. Very quickly, let me tell you a little bit about what a high tunnel is. A high tunnel is just a big hoop house. It is a plastic covered frame that allows us to plant beds underneath. It's not a greenhouse, it's not heated, but it does allow us to grow things out of season. We can extend our season in the spring and a little bit in the fall. You can do the same thing by making hoops out of PVC pipe over your beds and stretching some plastic over it. It's the perfect chance for you to have a small hoop house over your own backyard garden, your raised beds, or even out in your garden depending on how big of an area you have. Bend some 3/4 inch PVC hoops, stick both ends in the ground, stretch some plastic over the top, seal up the ends with plastic. You've got your own hoop house, your own high tunnel. If you look at the way we've constructed our high tunnel, we have a number of different beds in here. And the beds all have different vegetables, and they are coming up and they're ready to be harvested here in just a matter of a couple of weeks. But let's talk a little bit about why we solarize our beds first. There's nothing planted in this bed, but we turned the soil all at the same time, and we did not put plastic over it to solarize this bed, primarily because I wanted to give you an opportunity to see what happens when you don't. See these little weeds coming up? They germinate faster, actually, than a lot of the things that you're going to want to grow, and therefore by solarizing your bed, you can eliminate these weeds from competing with the plants that you do want to grow. If you'll remember from our talk, one of the things I said was you can plant a lot of things early. I don't know about you, but I like radishes. I love radishes. And I love a lot of root vegetables. I love a roasted root vegetable medley dish. It's absolutely delicious. And one of the things I like to put in all of my salads is some radishes. Now, like we said, you might remember those red radishes with the white centers that you see at most restaurants. There are a lot of other radishes out there, some just absolutely delicious ones. One that I'm growing this year, which should be ready by Easter, is called Easter egg radishes. Remember I said that radishes were about the easiest thing in the world to grow? Well, there we have a row of radishes that have already sprouted. They've only been in the ground about 8 days, and they are now starting to come up in the ground and will be ready to harvest before Easter. They're ready in about 21 days total. You can also see in this row that we have a row of carrots. They're just beginning to break the ground. Carrots have a little bit longer duration before they're ready to harvest. But as you can see, the carrots themselves in this row are so small, any weed competition would tend to choke them out. That's why we solarized this bed to cut down on weeds that would germinate at the same time as the radishes and the carrots. We also have a variety of lettuces planted in the high tunnel, but they are very, very small when they come up, almost like the carrots, and they're so sensitive that you have to keep an eye on them all the time because they have very, very thread-like, almost hair-like roots. If you look at this row of lettuce that's growing, it's a row of lettuce that has a bunch of different varieties in it. It's actually a salad mix. You can see some red lettuces and green lettuces growing in there. These lettuces are very, very small plants when they come up. The roots are extremely vulnerable. And one thing you have to keep in mind is whenever you're growing lettuce is you have to keep it wet all the time. Another factor in starting your early greens is soil temperature. Each of the plants that I talked about in my previous video, radishes, beets, carrots, snow peas, lettuces, arugula, greens, spinach, all of them do well at cooler temperatures, but they do have optimum ranges. Most of those ranges for these cold weather crops starts at about 40 degrees at the minimum. 85 is the maximum for them to germinate and start growing, but they all do very well in the 50 to 60 degree range, particularly if that's the temperature that the soil drops down to around nighttime and it gets back up in the 60s or so in the daytime. So let's check our soil temperature on this cloudy day when there's not much sun. It's a little bit cool here in the greenhouse. It's still only in the low 60s inside the greenhouse. It's drizzly wet outside. Let's check the soil temperature and see how we're doing on that. There are many devices available today to check soil temperature and check temperatures on surfaces and your grill and meat and all kinds of things. The one I like is this very inexpensive device, which I picked up at Harbor Freight Tools. Really cost me, I think, $20 or less. And it's a laser temperature sensor, infrared thermometer, and it's very easy to work. It both shows in Celsius, if you can see the screen there. Click this button once and it switches over to Fahrenheit, and it'll give you the overall temperature wherever your laser is aimed. So right here is that lettuce bed I was showing you before. Let me aim my laser down there, pull the trigger, and the temperature in that lettuce bed, I don't know if you can see that laser or not, but 59 degrees or so, really pretty good for germination. Let's go over here and see what the temperature is in the radish bed. Let me just aim my, almost 60 degrees. So we're in pretty good shape in terms of germination temperature, plenty of moisture, and that means we should have a good crop. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day, Aaron Go Bra. Love to talk with you about things involving the garden, and I really especially like to talk with you about, on St. Patrick's Day, growing some greens. So get out there and get planting, get growing, and don't forget, subscribe to our channel by hitting the subscribe button below. Give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at steepleviewfarm.net. Oh, and whatever you do, come see us, would you? We're easy to find. We're right on US 127 in beautiful downtown Poplar Grove, Kentucky. We hope to see you here.